Welcome to the Bold Lounge podcast. My name is Lee Burgess, and I will be your host. If you're anything like me, you love hearing inspiring stories of people who have gone on bold journeys and made a positive impact in the world. This podcast is all about those kinds of stories. Every week, we'll hear from someone who has taken a leap or embarked on an extraordinary journey. In addition to hearing their stories, we'll also learn about their bold growth mindset that they use to make things happen. Whether they faced challenges or doubts along the way, they persisted and ultimately achieved their goals. These impactful stories will leave you feeling motivated and inspired to pursue your own bold journey. I believe everyone has a bold story waiting to be freed. Tune in and get ready to be inspired. Welcome to the Bold Lounge. Today I'm so excited, and I have Kyle and Marci Pruzina, Suitcase Souls. They are a singer-songwriter pop duo from Nashville. Welcome, Kyle and Marci.
Thank you so much, Lee. We are so grateful and thankful to be here. Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
So I'm very excited to introduce you to the audience who is all about being bold. And there's always a continuum of bold, and I think from a perspective of what people do and where they start and how they end up and how they keep going. So really, really excited to hear your journey and your story of boldness. So we'll start off with the regular question I ask everyone is, what is your definition of bold?
Marci, I'm going to let you go first.
Great. Well, the thing that came to my mind is, to me, being bold is doing something that actually requires some risk, and doing it knowing that there's a risk, but you're going to follow through and you're going to be courageous, even though you don't know an outcome of what that thing may be. But you have to just kind of take a step forward, and no matter what happens in a certain scenario or whatever that is, I don't think you would regret stepping out in boldness, because you know that you could have given it your best shot. And and there's really no failure to me. I feel like you can give things your best try and your best shot at things, but it's always going to progress you further along wherever you are in your journey. So failure to me doesn't really exist. You just got to keep going. And that takes and requires a lot of boldness and courage.
Mm-hmm.
So
I heard someone the other day say fail stands for first attempt in learning. I thought that was kind of cool. Yeah.
That's really good.
That's good.
I like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So taking a risk, obviously requires kind of leaning into some unknown. Mm-hmm. You might even be a little afraid. I don't think boldness is fearlessness. I think it's actually part of what may fuel you, honestly.
That's good. Yeah.
That's right. Yep. I agree.
When was the first time, based on your definition, you can go back as far or as recent as you want, that you took a bold move?
The first thing that comes to my mind, and I'm sure Kyle may be saying something very similar, but it's this music career. Mm-hmm. Because it requires a lot of boldness, and because you really just can't be wishy-washy, I guess, about it. You can't
be all in.
You have to be all in about it. You have to really believe what you're doing and the why you're doing it. And that requires a lot of boldness, because if you don't have that, then you will constantly be disappointed. You will not be sure of what you're doing or where you're going. And that's definitely not the best place to be, especially in the music industry, for sure. And I think that that's something that we have to continually remind ourselves, not saying that we have it down perfectly, but I don't know. I just feel like we have to constantly take steps forward, even if sometimes industry wants to push us back, or we have many setbacks. It does take a lot of just like that gusto, I guess, to really get to where you want to go. And I feel like in the music, why would we be doing this if we didn't love it, or if we didn't really feel like this was what our purpose is?
Yeah.
Because there's so many disappointments in the music industry. There's so many things of, is anything going to happen, or is the needle moving far enough? There's so many insecurities about being in this industry, because it is such an unknown, and it's a grind. But I think that really there's somebody that has said, if you are not sure that you love music, just don't do it. Mm-hmm. because it's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. So you have to just kind of choose to keep going if you really love it. So
the highs are high and the lows are lows,
yeah,
right? It sounds like
yeah,
in that sense. And all through that, you have to be, I go back to all in. Because if you're not all in, then there's doubt. And I'm assuming like stress and all those other things that are just normal human
yes,
emotions. And then those up mostly could impact your art and how you feel and how
absolutely.
you sing and those types of things. So that's great. Okay. All right, Kyle, you're up. What's your definition of bold?
I think to me, boldness is acting despite a high possibility of failure.
Mhm.
Because I think that there is kind of a strange, like, naivety that comes with doing something outside of the norm, especially when it comes to business. There's kind of a safe way that I think people perceive as the right way. And for me, I've given up on trying to convince anybody of another right way or a righter way, if you will, because I understand. I think we're all kind of after the same thing. I think we want a feeling of purpose and meaning behind what we're doing, but also it has to be coupled with safety. And for me, boldness is creating something. I don't want to build somebody else's thing forever. I want to build something that's my own, because to me, that's the ultimate thing, more than security or money or anything. Those things kind of take care of themselves if you help enough people.
Mhm.
But to me, the real joy, the boldness is someday I want to be able to take 10 steps in a direction and then turn around and then look behind me. And I want to see this mountain of things that happen because of
Those steps.
sequential bold steps.
Mhm.
Exactly. Exactly. And I don't want to turn around and see all these things where, oh man, I could have given myself more to that thing, but I kind of played it safe.
Mhm.
So to me, boldness is kind of doing what your gut wants to do anyway, but just leaning into it completely, I think.
Yeah. So when was the first time you remember being bold?
I think for me, I grew up as a pastor's son. And so that's how I got my start in music. And I remember writing my first song in my room. I was like 10 or 12 years old or something. And I had this little spiral notebook, and I only knew 4 chords on the guitar. So like that was it. That was all I could work with.
Gotta start
And
somewhere.
that's right. And so I, learned these chords, and I'm like, well, this guitar and these chords, like there must only be one purpose for this, and that must be to write a song. And so I don't know, I never questioned it. I just kind of did it, and then I wrote another one, and then I wrote another one, wrote another one. And before long I had this full notebook of all these little silly songs, about like my brother and sister, and I don't know, like church songs for sure. I was just copying what I saw, but I didn't realize that was a bold step until later, because nobody else was doing that. Like none of my
Yeah.
friends were doing that. So I didn't realize it at the time. So I can't like take credit. It was just in me for some reason. And so
Yeah.
I would say like the evolution of that moment was when I quit Bible school. I was trying to train to be a pastor and everything. I never really thought about it because I felt a lot of support and encouragement from my family to do that. And I was like, sweet, okay, awesome. I'm the oldest child. I thrive on support and encouragement and everything. So I'll just kind of keep going until something stronger, like a stronger influence or feeling or something, comes and changes my path. And that's what happened, because that same feeling of like a surge of songs started happening again. And so I found myself on my dorm floor at my Christian college campus, just writing song after song after song. And I got this feeling again of, what, like nobody's really doing this, but I have to go this direction. And so that started me on looking for music schools, eventually transferring, majoring in songwriting, and that's where I met Marci. So I'd say that was kind of one of the bigger, bold moves of my life that has really changed the trajectory to lead us where we are today, writing songs full time in Nashville and doing creative work. And that was a big moment for me.
Yeah. So a bold step that, had some stages, right? And I think one of the important things you said is you didn't know you were being bold even. It was just like I was kind of following my heart, as cliche or that sounds in a sense of you were really following your passion and what you felt was pulling you, right? I
Mhm.
think sometimes people fight it. Like you were saying, they kind of play it safe or they want to stay where it's stable, which stable and safe are not bad. But
Mhm.
I don't know if you actually can live the life you're meant to live if you stay in that safe and stable world.
Mhm.
At least my
That's really
opinion.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and from my experience though, growing up, I didn't want the normal life.
Mhm.
I was just going against the crowd in that way because a lot of people, like you're saying, wanted the safety, wanted like a suburb type of life
Yeah.
and family and kids and all the things, which we still want. But like
Yeah.
I've always actually wanted to do the different thing. I wanted to do something that was what I was passionate about, you know, and that was expressing myself at that time before I met Kyle through music. And
Yeah.
it was like, this is not what people are doing. And they will tell you time and time again, you're going to struggle, you know, and it's funny because my dad had told us that one time. It was really funny.
He didn't say it in so many words. I don't think he meant it like that. It wasn't
Yeah.
like he pulled us aside in the kitchen and said, "You're going to struggle." He actually said it just as part of his wedding speech.
But not funny.
And I don't think he meant, I
He
think
did.
he would have said that for anybody, but it's
No,
funny
Yeah.
how it kind of carried some weight for us because
it did.
it is a
Yeah,
longer road,
it is a
to
longer
do
road.
something like this.
Right. So, but I think we both have, you know, come to terms with like, we're absolutely doing something that a bunch of other people find kind of ludicrous and crazy. And we're going to keep doing it because we love it. So,
Yeah. Well, you're not doing it for them.
Hey,
right.
that's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the pieces of being bold too is you realize, and it's just so awesome to see you all kind of in this space and doing your thing. And, you know, I hope this amplifies 100 times over for people to hear. But I mean, when you're being bold, there are going to people that don't understand. They're not going to understand it. And what
Mhm.
sometimes it actually brings out in them, like what they wish they could do or what they would hope they could do. And they totally have the power to do it. And
Hmm.
somehow you're triggering that, like, if I could, when I am, one day, and it's just
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
well, this today. And, our parents, the weight of our parents' words, like it's just, it happens. And they mean the best, but
They
sometimes you're
do.
just like, oh, like, yeah, we all
Right.
have it. Like there's a
Right.
moment, in time, but it is a bit of a struggle. Being
Yeah.
bold too isn't all easy and rainbows and butterflies every day.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you're like, wow, I'm tired, or I'm, that was a lot, or might be stressed, but hey, like I chose it.
That's
I
right.
love that.
Yes.
That's such, I
Yes.
resonate with that a lot because
Yes.
the
Yeah.
last couple of nights, not because I had to, but kind of because I just wanted to, I've had a lot of creative work. And then I found myself, I check the time and it's midnight or something like that, and that's a completely different feeling than if you have to work late, for something that you're not necessarily passionate about,
Right.
and I like what you said about pulling.
Hmm.
It's kind of pulling you along, and although it may be a cliche in some other contexts, I really think like the follow your heart thing. I used to kind of have funny feelings about that, and now it starts to make sense
Hmm.
because sometimes there are things that sort of they pull you in that they kind of create their own momentum, and you
Mhm.
kind of fall into the slipstream. It's hard to explain, but once you're in that thing,
Mhm.
it, even though it never stops being difficult, it's easy to continue. And I think
Right.
that's
Right.
what music feels like for us.
Right. We were talking with a friend actually recently about this, and she was saying, you know, like if I completely tomorrow I gave up music completely, for I don't know, a year. And we were talking about how there would still be like moments of creativity that come to us. And there still be moments where we want to be singing or we want to be performing. And we would just feel sad to
Hmm.
not be able to experience that. Like if we just decided today we were going to quit, we're going to be done. I think
That just sounds terrible.
it sounds, yeah, like it's just like, oh no, like
Yeah.
why would we ever do that? This
Right.
is, like there, it's just in us, like there's going to be something coming forth creatively constantly,
Yeah.
So
That might be like a test review, like the quit test. If you say I quit, whether it's your role or your job or a relationship or whatever it may be, and it makes you sad, there's something there, right?
There's something there.
But if you say I quit and it doesn't really feel or it feels good, then, I'd have that moment like, ooh, what should I be doing? Why does it feel okay to leave something?
Right.
Just, I'm not a therapist, but I just think there's something there in the sense of like,
no, that's really good.
Yeah, if it feels sad to leave something, I think you were meant to be by it, with it, through it.
That's right.
It out, all those things that go into it. Because I think the relationship with our passion is a relationship. So like you get mad at it, you get happy with it, you're like ups, you're having an up and down relationship with it, but it's mostly ups. But like you go through these waves of, am I doing the right thing? Yes, I am. Your response back to yourself, or how many times that comes up, I feel like from the time that you decide to the time that you're doing it, like those moments happen less and less and less. I know my first year was just like definitely the first 3-4 months when I was like, am I going to get a client? Like it took me 4 months to get a client, which sounds maybe short, but when it's like you're the person, the breadwinner, the person like putting, doing things, and people are believing in you, and you're like, I don't want to let everybody down. And so like you get a little nervous in there.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yeah, I feel that in a big way with creative work that's very client based. I mean, I've started a new brand recently that's similar. That's kind of a new space for me in video and things like that. And there's some pressure because it's kind of a double-edged sword when people believe in you, right? Because everybody wants that. Then you want support, and oh my gosh, that's so awesome. That makes perfect sense. Whenever you start a new idea or something. But then, like you said, you don't want to let them down. And I think it comes back to the bold idea for me is I really love what you said about there being less and less of those moments. When you first start, kind of doing these sort of things, there's a million of those. Well, wait, hold, but what if
per hour?
Yes.
Exactly. And I think as you've tried more things, the beautiful thing about trying something is no matter what happens on the other side, you're going to be stronger.
Yes,
you will, because you'll be faster at decision making, not reckless, but you'll be able to take a decision and very quickly weigh it against what happened with all the rest of the things and say, okay, that didn't work. So I'm going to pivot. I'm going to create this offer and I'm going to press go. And that's it. And then you lean 100% into it. And, the clients, it's 6 months, 1 month, a year. I think once you believe with the right actions, this is a inevitability. I think there's a lot of power there because what you've done is you've trained yourself to say no to those feelings of fear, those feelings of maybe I'm on the wrong path. It's kind of crazy because probably somebody in their right mind would say, hey, maybe I am on the wrong path, but it would be such a shame to quit right before that first client. If at 3.5 months you would have said, hey, 3 months was kind of that would be awful. It would never create all the results that it has for people and for yourself and for your community that it has. And so there has to be a level of craziness, I think.
There's some crazy in being bold, right?
Right, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, and there's belief. So in the sense of also having a little bit of crazy in there, there's this belief, not only in yourself, but also in kind of like, I'll learn along the way, the growth mindset. So in your world, what does belief look like?
That's great. I'm a big systems person, like an inputs, outputs type of person. And to me, belief is different than hope. When we first started, I would say when I was in my early 20s and I was in another band and we were playing and touring and making records and all of that kind of thing. And you're always hoping for the next opportunity. And I say opportunity in air quotes, because the problem with kind of hope versus belief is that it takes the control and it disperses it out of your hands. And there's all these things that you hope come together. Whereas I feel belief is if we create certain systems, eventually mathematically success has to happen. What you're doing is you're just turning up the knobs on all of the likelihood that these systems will attract A, the right people, B, you can say no to the wrong people, and then C, when those opportunities come, you will be ready for them in that you can actually fully appreciate and take advantage of them. Because if the right opportunity comes at the wrong time, it's not an opportunity. It's just a kind of a hindrance. And so for me, belief is simply do the work, get great at the craft, And then the back end systems that will elevate your craft or your service or whatever it is that you do, those things are easy. The hard work is become the type of person that you want to be for the audience that you wish to serve. And then the belief is simply, okay, awesome. People have come before me and done this already, which means it's not crazy to think, it's not a huge leap to say, if I do the same things with the right people in place, it has to work. And I think that's what takes a lot of the fear out of it for business people, for people who are trying to get into something like this, where they can have a bit more control. It's not as crazy as all your extended family thinks it is. It's to give you a little bit of hope.
Yeah.
The belief is not simply a blind faith that everything will work out. There's maybe a tiny bit of that, but more than half of it is planned, and it's a deep-seated conviction that what I have is valuable.
Right.
Like, sure, monetarily, but also just existentially for my audience. When I show up and when we have the right people, the results will be great, and then the byproduct has to be business success. But it comes first as just, I know that what I have to bring to the table is valuable. And that's where I think it begins, is if somebody believes that sincerely in their heart of hearts, and they've tested it, they've verified it, in small ways, to say, oh, you know what, I have received feedback. This is important, what I have to bring, then the rest of it will take care of itself. And I think that's where the belief lies for me.
Yeah. It takes work. It takes preparation, and it takes a plan. What's always interesting is people say, oh, that's too hard, or, I'm just not sure. I'm like, but you work hard for someone else, or you work hard, you'll work hard for
That's
X, but this, doing something for yourself, of course it might be hard.
Right.
But you're doing it for yourself, and you're moving through those paces with a belief that you'll succeed.
Right.
And again, there are emotions that come in every now and then and go, whew, am I doing this? And half the time, at least when I first started, I was like, am I doing it right?
That's so good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you ever experienced that, like as you're kind of trying a new song or trying something new, and you're actually taking your craft and you're doing cool things with it. So maybe tell people kind of what you do, because it's not just you go up and you obviously you perform, you have your own music, you have new things coming out. Even on June 23rd, you have your new single coming out. So, but how have you taken it and made it into a form that can help people in all these different ways?
I love that. And I want to hear what you have to say, Marci, as well.
You go first.
But I want to touch on something you said, Lee, that I think is really important for pretty much anybody who could be listening. This is so empowering. And the idea is, am I doing it right?
Yeah.
I think that's a good thought, because at the very beginning of something, the beautiful thing about that question is it implies that there's a great track history. There's a track record of people who've come before that have kind of done it wrong and figured out what works. And so that means that we've recognized, oh, I can go back and I can actually skip a lot of those steps, and I can learn from people who come before. So I love that question for that reason. Am I doing it right? Because when you dive in, you just got to figure out a lot of stuff when you start your own business and when you start your own endeavor. But I think the other belief is that you have to couple with that is, I can do this. And if X. And so it's a lot of like, I believe that no matter what brick wall I run into, I can learn it. I didn't used to think that, but as we've gotten into music and I've started to learn how to produce, and there's just skills that you have to learn along the way. And I think for anybody starting any new endeavor, if they're wanting to get into their own business and take that full time, there has to be kind of this crazy belief of, no matter what I run into, whether it's a website or just
Finances.
Small things,
Some people get
finances,
right?
Yeah,
exactly. Like, no matter what it is, I can either A, learn how to do it, or B, I can find somebody on my team, who is of a like mind with me that I can partner with, and I can outsource that thing. So no matter what, it becomes, it goes from, oh, that's too hard, to, oh, how can I solve that problem? And as soon as you make that switch, there's nothing that can stop you. But
He's definitely the problem solver of the two of us. And he sees an obstacle and he's like, all right, how do we get over it or around it?
Measuring it and
yes. And
Yeah.
I'm definitely more, I have the tendency a little bit more to be like, oh no, I just hit a wall. What do we do? Like kind of freak out a little bit and complain or something for I don't know how long, a day or two. And then he's like, no, well, this is how we're going to do this. And so I feel like, so I think to your question, it was like how do we kind of like do what we do? Is that
yeah, like how do you take something because for example, I think as you create a product or a service in my world and probably in your world too as well, it's like they're all the ideas aren't good ones. And so it's like
Mm.
figuring out, okay, that kind of didn't catch or people didn't understand. That was another thing. Like I think people didn't understand what I do or how I do it and how I do it differently, how I'm differentiated.
right?
So that's like a big piece to it. But like you're taking your passion and it's like, okay, there's like multiple ways I can be creative. There's multiple ways I can be a musician. And they're
Yeah.
all positive. And you may like one more than the other, but they're all things that help support your ultimate goal.
Right.
Mm.
Right. And I think for us, it is a lot of trial and error with like social media specifically, because if you're not on social media and not making content, people do not know about you, So we have a lot of trial and error right now with that and figuring out what's going to help us get out there. Because obviously I do think as musicians, I think our main passion is to perform live. That just does something in both of us that's just like, whew, that's so that nothing takes away that
Yeah.
feeling of performing live. So having to figure out how to get these people in a crowd to actually like go check us out, go listen to our music. We have to be, just trial and error, figuring things out with like, how are we going to connect with people? How are we going to share our story? How are we going to share our music that's going to hopefully speak to them? And a lot of it is with the songwriting too, because if you don't have a good song, you don't have a good song. And it's like, and
you can't fake it. You can't
fake that. Exactly. And so people are not resonating with it.
Yeah.
You will kind of quickly find out too.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, well, that one just did, and I think our previous work, we did an album like released a couple years ago. It was kind of like a concept album. We wrote it in our very first couple years of marriage. And we were very much like so deeply in love, which is we still are. It's great, but like we wrote that entire album about us, and now looking back at it, we're like, oh man, people are probably like, man, they just wrote so much about themselves. And so we're like, well, great. We now know how to not do that again. And however, we have had some people resonate with some of those songs too, but
I would say so. Yeah. I think that's the cool thing about music. I may really connect with track 3 and, maybe my husband connects with 5 and, my friend with 7, and maybe we all just freaking love 8 and nobody likes 9.
Yeah.
Skip, like
Yep.
that. I mean, that for me, like, that's kind of hard as a musician because each one of those are like a creation, which takes time.
Yes.
And I think like I don't even know the half of it, but just the layers of the production and the coordination and just the whole thing.
That's
Mhm.
right.
Like on average, how long does it take to take a song from I have an idea and I wrote the words to it's a song?
That's a great question. And I wish it was like a cookie cutter answer every time. Here's the cool thing.
Yeah.
There are elements of just wild card where it's just like you never know, or like you get an idea and then you write the whole thing in a half hour on a note in your phone. And for
Yeah.
whatever reason, you know how you want the melody to go before you ever pick up a guitar or piano or whatever. And then you just go to it and you make a voice memo. And sometimes it's that quick. But for example, another song that would be the single we release after this next one. We wrote it with our producer, and it took us maybe 2 or 3 hours, but we really needed to just stew on the idea. And we
Yes.
had the concept,
Yes.
but sometimes it just takes being in the room with other people and kind of putting the song on the shelf for a minute and just talking about what it really is, that feeling that you're digging towards. And then once you kind of hit that, that nugget, then it almost writes itself.
Right.
And so like I'm thinking of Already There,
I'm thinking,
a song that was really like, in a world where you're chasing the next thing, what if you kind of pause to say, yeah, but where I'm at now is where I dreamed of being, years ago. And so it took us so long to figure out how to say that in a way that felt sincere, But
Yeah.
I think when you can combine just go-to systems, for example, like if you run into a brick wall with a lyric or something like that, like say we're writing and we just can't figure out what this verse needs to be. At some point, like I'll give myself a window of time, and if we don't get it in that time, instead of just hitting our heads against the wall, we'll go back and we'll write the chorus. And if the verse still isn't coming, we'll write the bridge. And then by that point, usually we've got enough elements there that'll help just bring some juice to that verse, and then it'll kind of write itself.
And also, I'll say this too, like it's okay. I guess in songwriting, a lot of people think that your first thoughts have to be like super concrete. And in songwriting world, you can just scratch it all and start over.
You can.
And sometimes I think as artists and creatives, you can be holding so tightly to your ideas and things. And sometimes it's like, oh, that actually, it could be better, but there may be something there, but there could be something better. And let's maybe take a different angle and let's go for that.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I've had to learn myself, because like if like a Taylor Swift thing, where like I'm writing out in my diary and I'm just going to write that. Sometimes it doesn't always come out the best, but it's okay. But there's definitely things that are there, some gold nuggets there.
Yeah. I think a couple of things you said, like letting it sit and kind of working on other things. I think it's certainly been extrapolated out for lots of people. So like you don't have to like hit it out of the park the very first time you do it. You may not.
Good.
You might strike out. You know, like I've definitely done that in the last, my entire life. But definitely as I've started out on my own business, like it's like, whoa, that really didn't go the way I thought. Oh, I thought it was super cool and no one else did.
Yes,
right?
You know?
Yes.
So I don't know if you've ever had that moment, but it's humbling.
Yes, it's just good to let it sit. That's always a good idea.
Yeah.
And then every once in a while, you'll have that Dolly Parton day where you write "I Will Always Love You" and Jolene in the same day.
There you go.
And you're like, I'm on a roll. Let's release it now.
Yes,
but that's like once every blue moon.
Yeah.
But most of the time, we just gotta let it sit.
I love that idea because, you know, for so many people outside the music industry, just trying to do your own thing. The beautiful thing about letting it sit while you're doing other things is every time you go for it, like you're getting better. Every time you bring one of these ideas to the table, you're getting faster at decision making. You're getting better at being humble and going to your trusted friend or family member and saying, "Hey, what do you think about this?" You know, so that one day your gut is kind of tuned, so that when you know that this is the thing, now you don't have to second guess yourself. There is a moment for not letting it sit. There is a moment for saying, no, this is the time and this is the thing, and I'm going to go for it. But all of the letting it sit in the moment, you know, will let you write that, 20-minute song, so to speak,
right,
when it comes to a business idea or something like that. So it's a process.
And you can know, the good thing too is that you can always test it on people, especially like on social media.
Oh, yeah.
You're like, hey, we just wrote this, see if it resonates. And like people will usually tell you like, yeah, this is cool. Or, if you don't hear any feedback, then it's probably not a good one. So
yeah, no hearts on that one.
Exactly.
So it's a process for sure. One of the things I think that you talked about, and at least I've extrapolated out, is relationships and how important they are. Like, not only your relationships, that's probably my first question, is kind of how does it work? You met, you started, like, when did you start creating music together? When you were dating?
Pretty much immediately. Actually,
before
we were dating.
No, that's not accurate.
No, yes, it is. Yes, it is. Before we were dating, long before
you even met.
I was very interested in
you. He was very interested.
You were not at all.
Oh, okay. I see. It was a one-sided
me. And we went, I wrote a song with a buddy because we were at a songwriting school. So we were just doing that all the time. We felt so cool and blah, blah, blah. And it was silly. So, but it was a great environment for us to learn.
You were at the same school or no?
We were at the same school in Memphis.
Okay.
And I wrote this song, and I was like, you know what? I know how I'm going to get her attention. I asked you to feature on this song.
Oh, yeah.
And so we did this duet on this song called Chance Like Magic.
Chance Like Magic was the name of the song.
And I didn't, and I can't, I could claim the credit for that, but it's not even my title idea. So that makes it even more like
Cool.
more cool. Yeah. So anyway, you came and sang on that thing. And I remember while you were tracking with the producer in the little apartment dorm room studio setup, I went outside in the hallway and I called my best friend from high school, and said, "Hey man, I just met my wife, I think." And so
Oh my
he's like,
gosh.
dude,
I didn't know that.
he's like, dude, you should marry her, bro.
I didn't know that happened in
That
that
happened
moment.
in that moment outside the
Oh.
hallway. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So yeah.
That's
Anyway,
really
so I was
sweet.
very like that.
Okay.
I'm not sure about
Chance
everything
like
I do
magic.
in life,
Chance like magic,
but I
let
was
this
sure about
happen.
that
That was
one. Yeah.
literally the lyrics. But I will say, obviously story ends up that we end up together. But when we were dating, we did sit down and talk about our dreams and what we wanted to do. And they were very much aligned, very much like pretty much the same thing. I want to do music. And so that was definitely like a big green light. And at first, when we first got married, actually, we were both doing separate things. He was doing an indie rock thing and I was pursuing Christian music. We actually didn't like release Suitcase Souls music until like 2019.
Yeah.
We had just like, we had written all those songs together and we were performing, like doing little cocktail gigs and stuff, but we weren't really like gun ho about it until we actually moved to Nashville like 4 years ago. And we're like, okay, this is it.
You're all in.
Yeah, this is our all in moment. Exactly. Yeah. And a lot of people are like, well, how does this work? Like, are you guys good, business wise together? Because some couples, they don't work well as far as like business stuff together. And we've never really been that way. Fortunately, we're very like actually good at working together and coming up with different ideas. And so I feel like there's a really good balance here. Like Kyle will sometimes be forgetful about lyrics, and I'm the lyrics person. Like, no, this is what it is.
That's true.
Like, I'll have to start singing some of the lyrics for him when it's his
That's
turn.
because I'm thinking about everything
He's
else.
thinking about everything else because, and it's true.
Why is the guitar player standing right in front of the drummer? Oh, and I don't know the words.
Yes. But it's really fun though. Like it really is. Like you get to do it with your best friend. It's very sweet.
Yeah. So the relationship piece is a base then, I think, for your success, and also kind of being able to get through the ups and downs and the in-betweens. Would you agree with that?
I would say so. Marci's much more of a feeler of the two of us, which is important for me because sometimes I'm just more of like a doer and a planner and a reactor,
Yeah.
And sometimes you need to just stop and appreciate where you're at and feel deeply and celebrate. I think the wins. I'm not super great at celebrating. I'm always kind of thinking of the next thing, next problem to solve, or what could go wrong,
Yeah.
And there's a place I think for hedging, but sometimes you have to stop and just say, you know what, like we're going to celebrate today and we're going to live in this moment. I'm sure there'll be a planning retreat or something where we can think of everything else. But for now, we're going to enjoy today. And so I think we really balance each other out in that way.
Kyle's brain just keeps going and going, and he's planning and he's thinking constantly, and he's a logistics guy too, and detail guy. And so, he's always thinking. And I'm like, well, this happened. We just threw a music festival. Let's go to the beach and do nothing. So it's a little bit harder for him to like not do anything. Yeah. So we do balance that out on each other.
Yeah. As we close out, I'd love just to hear your thoughts of what you would say to someone who's just on the fence of should I or shouldn't I follow my passion? What would you say? Like if someone came up to you and said, I really want to get into music, or I really want to start my own business, or I want to learn, but man, someone's got to think I'm crazy. I'm not sure if I'll make money. Isn't what I went to school for. I mean, those are some of the things that pop into people's heads.
Oh, the school thing gets us too. Yeah. But I would say like, there's going to be like, because Kyle is going to talk again about like the logistics and planning and everything, because there is portions of that. I believe that you need to have your bills paid, while you're pursuing whatever that is.
Yeah.
My advice to that person is just that you should at least attempt.
Just start, right?
Just start. Exactly.
It can be small.
Exactly. Just take a step, do something. And if you find out that you don't like it, then you don't have to do it, you know?
Mm.
You don't have to force yourself, even if but if there is a spark, if there's something in there, that fire that is just like burning and it will not be put out until you do such and such and such things, you really gotta go for it. You gotta take a step. You gotta do it. And that requires a lot of sacrifice. And you just kind of have to know that going into it, that it's going to require your time. It's going to require sacrifice. You may have to not be with your friends all the time, or you're going to have to work harder and stay up later for things. It's not going to always look like the rainbows and butterflies that a lot of people see, like on Instagram. It's the picture perfect thing. People do not see behind the things. They don't see the struggles that we have often with this music career. So, they exist and it requires sacrifice. But if there's a spark there and you want to light that flame, I say you have to at least do it for yourself and try it and give it your best shot.
Yeah, that's really good. I would also say be willing to open your hands when it comes to your identity. I'm speaking specifically to the person who went to school for something that you're not passionate about anymore. I love what you said, Marci, about like, if you don't love something, it doesn't devalidate. I don't think that's a word, but it doesn't devalidate the fact that you did love it, or that you thought there may be something there. Never discredit yourself for looking for a spark. If you didn't find one, that's fine.
There's no shame in the search, right?
No shame in the search.
Exactly.
That's really well said.
Yeah.
Because it is the search that will bring you to the next spark. So it's not like you landed in this pit of despair. And exactly. No.
Yeah.
It was you, and you were learning along the way of the telltale signs for what a spark should feel like, and more importantly, what it doesn't feel like. Because when you get there, because I'm assuming a lot of your audience, they're going to be competent at multiple things, right? Which means they're probably great at the job. You're probably great at the job you already have, and you're probably good at 2 or 3 other things that actually really excite you. But that doesn't mean that you should feel some kind of obligation that once you go for it, full time with something, that's it. And for the next 30 years, you have to do that, and you're just bound to it by contract. Try things. Be willing, be willing to be fluid with your personal identity.
Yes.
You don't have to show up and shake somebody's hand and say, I am a this. That's okay. You can say, I'm a this, and I also do this, and I've been trying this. Exactly. You know what I mean?
Exactly. That and a this and a that.
Exactly.
It's okay. It's a dance, and it's
musicians very much have to say that.
Yeah.
That's right. Because someday, you'll find that thing, and it won't feel forced. You won't feel like you're tricking anybody, or you won't feel that the fear of, you know what I'm talking about?
Imposter syndrome? No.
Exactly. Imposter syndrome.
Yeah, so imposter syndrome is like when you don't think you belong in the room, and so you either dim your light, or you kind of sit back, or I don't want to shine because then people will think I'm at that and I'm really not, or you really are but you don't want it to come out, so yeah.
Imposter syndrome, that's interesting. The last thing you said, like, you really are but you don't want that to come out. It's like this false sense of humility. And so what I would say to people who are considering, like, should I do this or not? Like, only you can know if you're able to do something super easily that other people are terrified of, or that comes difficult to them. I think we were talking yesterday. What was it that we said? It was like, find the hardest thing that you can do easier than everybody else. And that's probably the thing, as long as there's a spark there, that's probably the thing, is like, find that thing that's really difficult. And it's actually kind of even hard for you, but for whatever reason, it doesn't feel like it when you're doing that thing. And I would say, you can only know yourself, and you're probably sitting there listening to this episode right now, and you know what that thing is. You have to just do it. Like, stop waiting for somebody else to say, you know what, you're really good at that thing. Sometimes you do need that person, but I would bet that you already know what that thing is. So just do it. Just do it 100%. Work harder than anybody else, even though it comes easier to you. And then there's nothing that can stop you. And just play, just have fun, get back to a place of having fun with it, and just go for it. I mean, if you're waiting for permission, here it is. You found it.
Exactly.
This is it. Go do it.
Kyle and Marci say, go for it.
Go for it. And don't listen to the naysayers of like, don't quit your 9 to 5.
You know what? I gotta
like,
speak on that. 9 to 5 can be the best thing for you. Like it really can be a tool that helps you have free time on the side to do your thing.
Mhm.
It can be that safety net. So that this comes back to identity. Let
Yes.
go of it. Like
yes.
it doesn't make you worse because you're still doing your 9 to 5. If you're not quite ready to make the jump, use the 9 to 5.
Right.
But you have to be faithful with the time outside. Otherwise, it's
Exactly.
never going to happen.
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
so use that as your safety net, build your thing on the side. One thing I would add to that is find ways that you can do your craft more hours.
In your peak hours too. Like
Your
Yes.
peak hours,
Yeah.
that's really good. Yeah. During your good energy hours. Yeah.
Exactly. Because sometimes you do your 9 to 5, you're like, man, I got to go do this. And it should never feel like I got to go. Right.
That's right.
Sometimes you got to muster up and get disciplined and intentional about what you're trying to accomplish. I don't mean that, but I mean, don't like put your passion in a space where it doesn't get your full self. Like
Mhm.
take a day off once a month, take a
Mhm.
half day,
Yeah.
take 2 hours a day.
That's
So
good.
start small, and that's really important piece there. I think, people think it has to be this huge leap or something so
Yeah.
dramatic.
Right.
Or,
Yeah.
Right.
I don't advise that honestly, because then it
Mm-mm.
might feel uncomfortable or too frightening and might stop you in your tracks.
That's
And-
right.
That's really good.
It's like if you're jumping into a very cold pond, like all in,
Yeah.
and then you're like, well, I've got to get out now. I'm freezing, rather than like tiptoeing your way in to where you can at least adjust to the temperature.
Yeah.
Like you gotta just take little
Do you.
steps.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Some people may jump off the dock. That's what
Exactly.
I ended up doing because I had to,
Yep.
and it worked out. But I don't think that's everybody's journey. So like, do
That's right.
you? It's really important too.
Yeah.
Yep,
That's a
for
good
sure.
word. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being on the Bold Lounge. All the information about the new single, their album, where you can find them is below in the episode notes. Thank you so much for being on the Bold Lounge.
Oh, Lee, thank you so much.
much.
We really enjoyed it. and,
Loved this
thank you for having
conversation.
us.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Bold Lounge podcast. Through the continuum of bold stories, vulnerability to taking a leap, you will meet more extraordinary people making a positive impact for others through their unique and important stories. By highlighting these stories, we hope to inspire others and share the journey of those with a bold mindset. We hope you've enjoyed this podcast and look forward to sharing the next bold journey with you.